Hospital Port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV and welcome to this, the 70-second reply to comments video. It's a video in which I get to reply to your comments, as the title suggests. Now, the reason I make these videos is I do appreciate when people write comments to me. I feel obliged to reply. I don't have time to reply by text, but so what I do is, as an alternative to that, is to do these comments reply videos every so often. Now you may think to yourself, well, what's the point of making a 9-hour video to reply to one of my comments? That's not good enough. I'm not going to watch a video for 9 hours long just to get a reply to one comment. Well, guess what? You don't have to. Firstly, I'll leave a timestamp under the comment I'm replying to, which will tell you within to the nearest hour when I'm going to be replying in the upcoming comments reply video to your comment. And secondly, my comments reply videos are not 9 hours anymore. They're much shorter than that because I do them more often. And also, another reason I do them is I enjoy doing them. I enjoy doing these videos, and you guys, the viewers, often enjoy them too. I know a lot of you watch them all the way through. So there you are. I've got to apologise. I've been quiet for a while. It's been coming on 2 weeks since I last made a video. Now, this is not something I planned. I didn't plan a sort of hiatus. I just found myself at a bit of a loose end, just thinking, well, what can I make a video about today? And I was also focusing very much on my serial, The Obscurati Chronicles, which is a written serial I'm working on. If you go to Ben's bookcase, panwell-bb.blogspot.co.uk, you'll see it. I just finished chapter 7. I was working on that. So, excuse me. Well, it's basically doing chapter 7 of that, so that's another reason for that I didn't really do much on YouTube. So someone's actually written to me saying, "Are you okay? You've been quiet." And I said, "Yeah, I've been quiet, I know, but I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm okay." So let's get on with these comments. Right, I'm doing an hour first, and I'm going to have to take a break because I'm actually recording Steve Bassett. He's going to be on the channel again. Replying to comment 71, Gary Robinson says, "Evening, Ben, mate. Looks like I win the tinfoil hat prize this month." You do indeed, Gary. It'll be on its way. A little Mexican tinfoil hat, especially for you. The lights below said, "Second." Brilliant lights. Well done, mate. Well done. Then Jam Noise 72 says, 554. Ben, I meant your interview with Jason and Jimmy. Right, this is a bit of confusion I had from Jam Noise because she was referring to something I was in. I couldn't remember. It was actually the Raconta's News. So yeah, I just couldn't think of it for the moment. That's just all. Okay, reply to comment 71. Excuse me. Gary Robinson says, "Ben, mate, in regards to our ongoing discussion about Disney and the relentless production of woke movies and TV shows that continue to lose huge amounts of money, it's been revealed this week that they are being bankrolled by another large bank who I would rather not name for some reason. That bank are bailing them out and picking that who I would rather not name and for you wouldn't want to name, okay, probably your comment would get deleted, I know. The bank are bailing them out and picking up the tab each time. Why is it? Why that is, I have no idea, but it does explain how they're able to keep making rubbish. There are news reports circulating today that the original Lord of the Rings movies are being No! The original Lord of the Rings movies are being remade for a modern audience, by which they mean woke, of course. It's early days, but some people are claiming that Frodo is going to be a man's man, if you get me. Oh, God, no. Cheers. Oh, that's horrifying. I mean, thank God. Always get the DVDs. I've got the DVDs of them, all the theatrical version and the extended version. Never just rely on online streaming. Always get the DVDs. Bastards, or download them if you can. Bastards, absolute bastards. A man. Frodo is pretty much an asexual character. I mean, he's male, and cis male, as they say, but he never has any seems to have any interest in female hobbits. Sam does. Sam marries Rosie, this girl hobbit, and has kids. In that way, Bilbo is pretty much the same, I think, if I remember rightly. But the idea that just because they're asexual, they're sort of gay is oh, dearie me. Oh, well. As for that, it's an interesting story about the banks funding Disney, and that's interesting because the bank then is not. That just simply that doesn't actually disprove the point I made, as you'll understand. I'm sure. I mean, it simply knocks the whole question down to another level. So if Disney are not the ones losing out over this, what about the bank? Whatever the bank is, they're obviously spending an awful lot of money to pay a movie company to waste money for them. I mean, and I mean, I wonder which bank that is, and I wonder what fairy dust they've been blowing into the eyes of their shareholders. But thanks. I mean, obviously your information is not welcome, but I appreciate you letting me know, and I bloody hope that doesn't happen. I really do. Hopefully Peter Jackson will speak out about it. Hugo Rune, hello. Reply to comment 71. Looking forward to this while I grind my weed and make lots of spliffs. Thank you, Ben. We'll watch all the way through while skinning up. Thank you. Well, you say I'm a flirt. Honestly, thank you. Well, you are with Jackie. I'm grinding my weed and skinning up some spliffs for my tin. Oh, yes, my videos are a 7-joint ride, aren't they, Hugo? Yeah. Jack Parker replied to comment 71. I haven't yet listened to comments yet for what I don't remember saying. I believe maybe at the 3-hour mark. Remember mucus and the very like utilitarian in our bodies must be conditioned, built and utilized, pulled along, stored in pockets to clean the air mixed with the food, ideally, etc. In the mouth with a little bit of negligible acid intertwined. Other aspects of fluid utilization, ambient fluid, proper hydration in joints. Very powerful purpose. It has our entire bodies. As you allow and force, encourage it to circulate. All right, thanks, Jack. Jack says here, I'll get on the same video. Edema will be diminished everywhere, sometimes masquerading as fat. All right. That's interesting. Edema is where you have fluid build up under your skin, or sometimes it's in internal organs. It can actually be deadly if it's in, for example, your lungs. But sometimes it just appears under your skin, makes you look bloated, and it's not. Oh, that's interesting. Jack Parker. Tighter around the eyes, your vision should clear up at some point. Oh, is poor eyesight caused by edema? Of course, greater muscularity control, automatic second nature. You may be able to see through walls like Superman at some point. Oh, right. Jack says, basically also lymphatic involvement, often quite misunderstood. Hair teeth can actually regrow. That would be a very disciplined trail that few can actually follow consistently. Yeah, well, obviously, I've still got most of my teeth, Jack, but, as far as hair goes, I'd be very surprised if you can do anything about that. Jack, giving a lymphatic system through cravings what it needs to work with. All right, Jack, thanks. Reply to comment 71, jam noise. 5817. Okay, this is... What's this? This is in the previous one, I think. He says, I hope Dave never took the piss out of Ben. Barry, if he made... Oh, right. It's a piss drinking reference, Ben, bro. Come on. I went straight over your head, haha. It did. Oh, dear, Jackie. I can't believe I never got that. Of course, Dave was always... Dave was one of the leaders of the urine drinking thing on CMR. I mean, most of the others were doing it. I didn't, but... most of the others were doing it. Oh, God. Is Dave still into that? Oh, man. Gary says, I replied to comment 71. In regards to what Dark Orders were saying about Anakin Skywalker using they-them pronouns, is very true. Oh, no. They have now created a whole website showing which male Star Wars characters are gay. Oh. Apparently Obi-Wan and Grand Moff Tarkin are now Rainbow Warriors. I love the way you put that. They are also adding this to books with a recent book describing how Obi-Wan Kenobi was confused by his attraction to a male friend. Cultural vandalism. Oh no, dear. I hope Alan Dean Foster isn't writing that. Oh man, you know about the novelizations he did and that novel he did, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. If he's roped in to do a bloody woke Star Wars, I will lose all admiration for him. I will personally burn my copies, all the Star Wars novelizations I have if he does that. Same video, Gary, again. You're right about that scene in Mutiny on the Bounty where Bligh is ordering the dead sailor to be whipped. One of my favourite movies, along with the 1980s remake with Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, they're both good films, actually. There's one made in the 1950s that has Charles Laughton playing Bligh, and then another one in the 80s with Anthony Hopkins as Bligh. Mel Gibson plays Christian. He has a more human side. I think they're trying to redeem Bligh slightly in the remake, not the remake, the second one, the remake. Yeah, it is a remake, by making him slightly not quite so evil. I mean, it was Charles Laughton's Bligh who ordered the whipping of the dead sailor. That didn't happen I don't think that happened in the second film. But the Laughton character in the original Mutiny on the Bounty film was a truly Machiavellian monster. I suppose that makes you less sympathetic to him when he's, of course, it makes it a more simple story, and you just feel real sense of justice when Christian takes over. Right, put some more in the boat. 71, Jack Parker. Rest when feel like resting. Well, I can't always do that because I have to work, but when I'm not working, I do. Strength will be off the charts. Excuse me. Allow engines to idle first. Don't redline it, but you should be able to perform incredible feats of strength. Remember, with the real guys upstairs, esoteric knowledge through eons of learning. Okay, right. Free weights are fun, but not without professional. Free weights are fun, but not without professional spotters. Keep it under 1,000 pounds bench press. All right, I don't bench press, Jack. I have weights. I do curl lifting with dumbbells, and I do press ups and things. But yeah, I mean, I don't overdo it. You know what I mean? It's something you can't overdo. A little joke, but they're not really, says Jack. Okay. No, I don't overdo exercise. I keep it within limits. It's BZ Garson. Oh no, Jack here. Jack says, yes indeed, spot check your strength along the way. Alright, well, I'll do my best, mate. I'll do my best. It's BZ Garson says, any chance you could bunch all your mostly cryptic and unintelligible comments into a couple of comments rather than spamming the entire comment section? Jack says to BZ, I'm not really into spam, but I do love it when it's fried with mayonnaise on Wonder Bread. Nice one, Jack. And Jen says, these comments, although seemingly critic, worth deciphering out. And Jack's, is it all Jack Parker on separate comments? I think he's teasing BZ now. Remember, I am touching real. I do indeed encounter real aliens. I don't think it's an option to decide that's crazy unimportant. I'm a golden goose. I can smile a little when I'm saying that, and I do mean it in a friendly way. That shouldn't be cryptic. Still counting, there's a knee-jerk reaction not to consider real. Oh yes, it's real. Perhaps my next encounter, seeing it through your eyes. Real is real. Try not to notice. 71, Hugo. Jah bless you, Ben. Spliff and no. Right on, brother. Oh, dearie me. Oh, Jam972. I wrote a comment and it vanished. Check your spam, bro. Fuck YouTube. Alright, I've done hell for review. Let's have a look. Some have been hidden. Okay. Show offensive comments. Okay. Alright, here we go. Alright, come on. Oh, I'm going to have to scroll back down now. Not to worry. But, I don't mind if people. I don't mind Jack. Jack doesn't bother me. He's he seems to be a bit more intelligible than he used to be. Actually, Jack. He used to be a real Mr. Miyagi. You couldn't make sense of him. He's like the dungeon master. What are you talking about? Oh, blimey, he's got loads now. Oh, I'm just scrolling back down. I'm just having a brief look at the various comments I have here. So, I don't know. I always say this ain't going to take so long. It's going to be a shorter video because it's not so long since the last comment section, but I don't know about that. Once I get onto the Apollo Detectives, there's going to be loads. Because anything to do with the moon landings always brings them all out saying all kinds of stuff. It really, really does. People just go on and on and on about it. It's like, I suppose that's fair enough. I mean, we make a video. If we make a video? Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't they? Okay, so Jam Noise, I didn't find any there by you. I have found one which I liberated. I forgot to do that before. And right, reply to comment 71. AA is academic agent. I thought I said it was. I said that, didn't I, Woody Black? Here's a timestamp. Rick Gordon says, "Did you catch Anthony AA trying to obtain some Prime Pen? Hilarious stuff, worth a gander. Well worth a gander." AA? Who's AA? Not Anthony Peake. Andrew. Oh, who's AA? It's academic agent, right? Okay, yeah. Very good, very good. Him and Sargon did a stream the other day. This is a vid in which he's trying to buy some Prime drink. Okay. I'll check out Sargon's channel here. Let's have a look. It's Sargon's channel. Let's have a look. I'll put it. I'm using. By the way, I'm using. Come on.
Warning: this Pizza film contains content that may trigger shock, drooling, stomach rumbles, mouth-watering, impulsive ordering with head-spinning statements.
What's happening? Not responding. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. Is this him?
Literally every single bottle is sold out. Metamoon.
Oh, this is academic agent. All right.
Blue Raspberry.
Okay. This is his own channel.
These are 12.
All right, I'll check that out later. But yeah, I'll check if he's on with Sargon. I'll check that out as well. But thanks. I'll check that out later. But thanks, Woody Black. Yeah, everything's working all right. I put it on display capture. It just went nuts. It's like it went. Oh, it's not. It's all right now. Still recording according to this. Yeah, it's seriously working all right. I'm using OBS, not StreamYard at the moment, because I found out unless you pay, StreamYard has limited. You only get 20 hours a month on StreamYard, and I thought I'd save those for the live streams. Gary here's on reply to comment 71 is saying, here's a link to the Disney Executive Minister's to Queer Agenda for David for asking for proof. Not a full vid, but excerpts with Brett Cooper. The full vid is out there, but it is long. I find it shocking. Let's have a look.
Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Brett Cooper. You might have seen that the hashtag boycott Disney has been trending for the last few
Disney executives talk about the gay agenda in leaked meeting. This is only a
days.
short video.
So Chris Rufo leaked videos from a Disney all-hands exec meeting, and the internet erupted. And Disney execs, fairness, brighten up this topic a little bit. I mean, we saw what...
And also as a leader. We have many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't...
Well, you shouldn't if you're making films for children.
Don't have enough leads.
So first of all, that there were these studies that were released that are saying that 40% of Gen Z, my generation, is now LGBTQIA plus XYZ. Like, what is it? What is happening?
I think that's...
Everything's under control, situation normal.
Anyway, somebody says, remember when Disney was about...
All right, I'll check that out later, Gary. But, I think it's about 5 to 10% of people who are LGBTQ, whatever it is, whatever it is. I mean, I think they're trying to warp people's minds to make people suddenly think they're a certain thing when they're not. That's the problem. But there you go. But thanks for letting me know about that, Gary. That's another one to add to my list for later. Definitely. I'll watch the whole thing as well. It is shocking, that sort of thing. Excuse me, even that little bit I saw there. Reply to comment 71 in Gary says here. This is your debate with David Smith, I remember. In response to what David said about mushrooms, I've been micro... Oh, you didn't reply there, did he? No, I'm sure David will reply at some point. I've been microdosing psilocybin for months now. Can certainly recommend it for clarity of thought process, natural positivity of mind, and good night's sleep. Pardon me. David Smith says, yeah, there is good evidence for them. What there isn't good evidence for is that taking certain other drugs can lead to interactions with other worlds and beings. Yes, there is, David. I suggest you read Rick Strassman's DMT, The Spirit Molecule, Graham Hancock's Supernatural. I could go on. People reporting to have similar effects from a particular drug could be that it's impacting the same part of the brain in all participants and thus generating very similar results. Well, in that case, David, I think I made this point to you before. That in itself takes fantastic explanation. It really does. I mean, why is that, and how? Is it not more likely, considering that this is cross-cultural and it affects people of all races, religions, ages, etc., is it not more likely that what they're perceiving is something objective rather than something subjective? Because if they're perceiving something subjective, you have to explain why the brain creates these same images among different people. Like I say, people who've had no contact with each other and grown up in very different cultures. It creates the same in every human brain. That takes fantastic explanation. He carries on. Arguing that it must be because what they experience is true is like saying a bunch of people at a magic show watching a lady get sawed in half must mean the lady really did get sawed in half and put back together. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, David. And it doesn't mean that at all. Well, it does partly, in a way, funnily enough. I know what point you're trying to... you're making a completely moot, a duff point here, but... the people at the magic show are watching a lady getting sawed in half, apparently. It's an old trick. They are seeing something objective. They're seeing a magician, and they're seeing a woman in a box not getting sawed in half when it looks like she is. I mean, whether she is or not, or what happens, they're seeing something objective. Which is what Gary and my point is. But the idea that somehow, they're seeing an illusion... If you're going to argue that, if that's the point you're making, that it's just an illusionist, then you have to argue that everything you see is an illusion. You have to argue that you reading these words on a screen, or you typing these words on the screen, listening to my voice, is also just a figment of your imagination. And it's not. I'm not a figment of your imagination. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't I? But you see, you're going down a rabbit hole here. It's a downward spiraling of bad logic, David. I think you realise where you are now. Gary says, and just to expand on my comment, here is a good segment from John Oliver on HBO talking about psychedelics for health reasons. All right. Let's have a look at this. Video unavailable. All right. Oh, the uploader has not... All right, it's not made visible in my country. Okay. Oh, John Oliver. Yeah, nothing with John Oliver can ever see... Seeing things with John Oliver in Britain is somehow very difficult, which is weird considering the guy's English. But he's basically an American. He's on the American scene. I'd have to look at that through Tor or something. I won't get that out now, Gary. But thanks very much. That's interesting, though. Thank you very much. And here's Big Bobby Dazzler. Who apparently that's a Yorkshire name. Apparently, I found out. Hi Ben, I've read your article. Oh, which one? Bobby, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I don't remember which one you're talking about. I didn't make a note. But, I know what it is. Yeah, I know. My point is, Mr. Parks is ultimately not telling the truth. Any sane person could see this. In what way is he not telling the truth? What's he saying that's lies? That he didn't have these alien experiences, these abduction experiences? Or that some snivelling little Me Too heroine turns up on somebody's live stream going, I've never met Miss Simon Parks, I don't know anything about him, but... And so, it's all right, dear. Your tears say more than real evidence ever could. That wonderful scene from The Simpsons. Never seen this Cambion. Stephen Cambion, his name is. You've never seen Stephen Cambion? Okay. My remarks... Oh, I think... Was it he who hosted this... Oh, isn't Simon Park's terrible kind of live stream thing? This manufactured outrage. My remarks are being made purely on what I've watched, and I've watched his content for many years. All right, well, Bobby, I don't agree with everything he says. His organisation is very cult-like, and working with Ward and the like just shows me he's more interested in clicks and money than putting out the truth. Okay, well, again... Charlie Ward is someone I, again, don't agree with on everything. I do wonder, for example, where he says he was brought up in the Plymouth Brethren, when the Plymouth Brethren actually died out in the late 19th century. I know because one of the last generation of Plymouth Brethren, this religious cult that existed in England, which ended in the 19th century. One of the last generation was Aleister Crowley. He was brought up in a Plymouth Brethren community. And I think his was the last generation. So I wonder, Charlie's obviously not that old. I'm guessing he was born probably in the late 1950s. So how on earth does he? I know. So that is a good question to ask. I'm not saying I agree with everything they say, but you see, as for more interesting clicks and money than putting out the truth, I mean, the question is, I don't know. He's not exactly. Simon and Charlie aren't exactly doing a Stephen Greer, are they? They're not saying, £5,000 to do a Skywatch with me, man, or anything like that. And they're earning a living off what they do. I mean, I've never given them any money. But cult-like, is there connecting consciousness? I mean, could it be defined as a cult? I've never been a member of it. I know people who are involved in it, and they don't appear like cult-like people to me. I know people involved in it who don't agree with Simon and everything. You have to give me more information along that line before I conclude that somehow CC is a bloody cult. I don't think it is. Jumping onto the American narrative was curiously suspicious at the time he did. Some people, I mean, Terry Joyce said this, and several other people have said, why is he, an Englishman, going on about American politics all the time? And I mean, my answer to that would be, well, are you saying that only Americans should have a comment on American politics? Because if you do, that'll be the end of a proud tradition in political science, which is foreign commentary. His work may provide small tidbits of truth, but the rest is utter rubbish. Which is which, Bobby? Because, I mean, if it provides some things you find interesting, what's the problem? Simply a disinformation ploy. Oh, not another thing is, Bobby, in what way is it disinformation? I mean, you're not going to do a Richard D. Hall, are you? Because he thinks everything's bloody disinformation. I mean, you have to be more specific. Again, please be more specific. You're making a lot of sort of generalizations in your comment here. Sorry, but I will never agree with you on him. Oh, fine. I mean, you don't have to agree with me. But I'm willing to discuss it with you. If you want to discuss it, that's fine. We can come to different conclusions, and you're free to, if you have evidence against him, then please present it. I've no problem with Miles, apart from he's a bit mad. Miles is very mad. Please watch some of his content and tell me it's fine to put this out. I have watched some of his content, Bobby, and I've not seen anything I think is not fine to put out. He talks a lot. I know he's into the, the 17th letter. So am I. He thinks that's real. I think it's real. He's put stuff up about gold and stuff. I've not watched his videos about gold yet. I just watched his political commentary and his stuff about ETs. Do you remember? I mean, if you think about his background, I mean, he really, what's he got to gain from this then? How is he going to be more successful than he was? He was an elected politician. He was a driving instructor. Maybe he still is. I don't know. What is he going to gain? What exactly is he going to gain from changing his life into what he is now, if it's not true? Also, answer me this. When he first came out about his UFO experiences and he started talking about aliens and UFOs and other things, where did he go? Did he call up Kerry Cassidy? Did he contact me? Did he speak to Mars? No, he went to Bufora. Now, the thing is, if you Google UFOs UK, you get Bufora first, and that's the kind of thing, you see, this is the kind of thing someone who'd never really spoken to the UFO community before and knew nothing about it at the time would do. That's what they would do. They would just put in UFO UK and they come up with Bufora and they go there. The thing is, like, Bufora are a very sort of Fortean science only kind of, they're sort of purely science only kind of organisation. Now, they're not skeptics, but they are very sort of like science only type people. I know, I've been to a Bufora conference. I know some people in Bufora. They are totally, I'm not saying they're against it, but they have no interest at all in exopolitics or conspiratorial ufology, none at all. Which is why it's for them, it is still about lights in the sky. They don't discuss lights on the ground. Someone with Simon's story, who goes to Bufora first, indicates that this is his first contact with the UFO community, meaning he knew nothing about it beforehand, and he in other words, he was being sincere. So I'm happy to continue having this discussion with you, Bobby, but I don't think you've given me any reason to doubt Simon in your way you do yet. Reply to comment 71, David Smith. Ben, could you show where you get the figures for trans people regretting becoming trans? Right. where I get it from. Though the studies I've seen actually show it to be less than 3%, which may sound like a lot, but consider that knee surgery is 6 to 30% more, then we should be arguing for knee surgery to be held back too. Is that right? Right, where did I get those figures from? Where is it? Trans regret. Let's have a look. There's been some very high profile ones. Well, to be on trans regret, how common is transgender regret? AP News. How common is trans regret? 1% on average. Okay, but I mean, maybe we should break that down with ages. Right? How many of the people who, in what age group do people have trans regret? So, for example, among, the under 20s, how many are they who decide to have trans surgery in their teenage years or even younger? How many of them feel regret afterwards? Because to be honest, if it's among older generations, I'm afraid, I can't feel as much sympathy, because I think to myself, well, this is like a mistake you do when you're older, like knee surgery. So my concern is about young people, and that's really all that I'm thinking about here. David says, showing children that it's okay to talk about these subjects if they have feelings that are bothering them isn't an opportunity simply to turn kids trans. I think David, I'm concerned that it might well be. I'm concerned that it is. I don't have the information to hand, but there's a lot of it on Sargon of Akkad's channel. There's a lot on lots of other commentators are covering this. I am concerned that I don't think really these sort of subjects should be talked about among children except within the family. There really is a family issue for children to deal with, I think. As I've said before, I know children live in families where there are trans people, where there are intersex people, where there are homosexuals, and they may even feel they're a part of that themselves at a very young age. If so, then it's for the family to deal with, in my view. When local education authorities start sticking their nose in and bringing in these slippery, deformed, psychological think tanks, then that's asking for trouble. David, if you believe anything like that, Ben, please could you point to a source you're using? From what I understand, it's simply trying to help kids who are really suffering, and many won't become trans and from being able to develop an understanding and clarity of their feelings. Right, well, I don't have time to go right now, David, but if you go to Podcast of the Lotus Eaters, there's lots of videos on this subject. Again, they might be wrong. You can correct them. They have open comment sections. You can correct them. By all means, we can continue this discussion. But, It does. I mean, my concerns are there. I think it's wrong for children to be this. I think the way it's being handled with children is wrong. David says here in reply to comment 71. I'm suggesting you think it's likely to be aliens, and you're saying it is aliens. David, I think your exact words were, "Why do you keep insisting this was aliens?" Or maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was someone else. At least two people. This is talking about the balloons and the quasi-balloon things. At least two people said this really weird thing. They said, "Ben, you keep insisting that this was aliens. Why? Why do you insist it was aliens when, I've never even said that." But these videos I made went so deep into so many different possibilities, and I even said this could be a big social experiment. David said, I'm suggesting that you think it's likely to be aliens, not that you're saying it is aliens. All right, well, yes, that is true, yes. But judging by your video output around these events and talking about possible disclosure, etc., can you really not see how it could be taken you're suggesting it is aliens? No, because I make numerous suggestions within the video. I never said it is aliens, I said it could be. I think it is likely. But to say I'm insisting it's aliens is wrong. My argument would be that it's not impossible to be aliens, but it is unlikely. Yeah, it's not impossible to be aliens, but I think it's probably more likely than you do. But I'm not saying it's definitely aliens, even though you're not saying it's definitely not. You seem to switch between skepticism definitions too. Sometimes you talk about people like Mick West being a skeptic, whom you can respect. Then you go on to say how skeptics won't even investigate claims before dismissing them. All right, yeah. I should clarify that. Yeah, I do. I think I do clarify at one point the different types of skeptics. There's a skeptic. I said, that the skeptics, the way a skeptic should behave is like, show me the evidence. Let's look at it. Whereas today a skeptic is, I'm not going to look at the evidence. I know it's not aliens. And the latter person is considered a better skeptic, a more rational person than the former. Do you understand that those positions are pretty much the opposite of each other? So can't both be skepticism? Well, David. They're not really opposite each other. I mean, I know they are. Well, in a world of perfect logic, yes, they are opposite from each other. But in conventional cultural definitions, they're not. You see, they are not opposites from each other. I make this point in my skeptic talk. The second type of skeptic, the closed-minded skeptic, will point to Mick West and say, "Look, he's one of us." When you're right. That shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be the case. What that skeptic should be saying is, Mick, why are you even looking at this? You shouldn't even be talking about it. Funnily enough, people have said that to me. They said, Ben, why do you even look at this? Why do you even discuss this thing? People actually said that to me. People actually said that to me about cases which I conclude are not alien. People said that about. I think, it was some. I mentioned some things I thought were Mandela effects. To do with music videos and things like that. I gave 2 examples of music videos where I thought I was getting the Mandela effect. People helped me out and they pointed out that it wasn't. And do you know what the response from people was, right? No, I said, thank you for pointing that out to me. Yeah, it's on HPANWO Voice, David. There's comments underneath to me saying, Ben, why are you even writing about this? You can't please these people. You just cannot please them. If you say, it's aliens, they'll say, why are you always saying it's aliens? You say it's not aliens. They say, why are you saying it's not aliens? Why do you just not talk about it? Anyway, David continues. I suggest that it's actually believers in these things that are more likely to refuse to look at new evidence that may explain away some of their beliefs. Oh, there are people like that, David. I don't think I'm one of them. I certainly aspire not to be one of them. In my opinion, that is what a lot of conspiracy theorists seem to do. Well, there are conspiracy theorists like that. I mean, when people look at Lewis Hamilton and say he's Barack Obama's son, that's a good example. I mean, he's not. They look similar. That doesn't make them related. I look like Al Murray, the pub landlord. He's not related to him. The planes were holograms is an example. No, it's not. The planes were holograms is not. The planes were holograms thing goes back to Dr. Judy Wood and Andrew Johnson, and there's actually a scientific, evidential case to explain that. That's not an example of what you're talking about here. When someone points out the technology doesn't even exist today to pull off such a feat, it is ignored. Well, you see, it does. It does. I mean, it's not even a secret. I've seen it done at Thorpe Park, where you have realistic images projected into the air. I've seen it done. Don't want to look into that. No time. Ha ha. Come on. Who's more likely to dismiss good evidence? Well, I mean, if it's something which I would ever reply to that, then yeah. But I mean, I've seen realistic images. I've even seen images of Michael Jackson dancing on stage when he's dead. Things like that. That's a response. That's not saying I'm not going to look into it. That's giving you a response to your question. Skepticism, science has led to so many changes and advancements in our lives. Oh, don't tell me you're only doing this. You're only talking about this because it's on the internet, which science created. No, you're going to say that. You're going to lay that old line on me. Oh no, here we go. I won't put words on your mouth, David. So many changes and advancements in our lives. And he does. You use it every time someone tries to scam you. The fact that you need to drop skepticism for your beliefs isn't a problem with skepticism. It's a problem with your beliefs, Ben. What? The fact that you need to drop skepticism for your beliefs. Drop skepticism for my beliefs? I'm not the one who's doing the drop-in of skepticism, meaning the literal sense of the word. It's the skeptics who do it. What about the thing I talk about in my skeptic lecture, David? You remember the guy with the Buddhist daughter? I would indoctrinate her into non-belief. Do you remember that bit? I think it's later on in the talk I bring it up. Have you seen it? I would indoctrinate her into non-belief. That's the problem with his beliefs. And he's like, I'm a skeptic, I'm rational, I'm going to, They seem to be largely just claims, says David. They saw a ghost is only accurate if they can prove it. A correct way is to say they said they saw a ghost. And I think if I don't actually include that in literal language, it's because it's kind of like unsaid, it's unspoken. I know that really what the phrase should be they said. I mean, I know that... I know very well, David, that it shouldn't be, they definitely saw a ghost. They proved it. They told me they saw a ghost. They proved it. No. I'm the first to say, no, you need evidence for that. Problem is, when you provide evidence, if it's very often a photograph, and photographs, of course, can be faked. David says on here, it's a separate comment, but it's on the same video. With regards to the insult thing, I have no problem with them. I'm merely pointing out that when I responded to someone who insulted me, you jumped on it and denounced me as if I'd done something incredibly wrong. If you're whenever having a row with someone else, right, and you jump on somebody who has a go at you, and I will not say that that's wrong. I can't remember the example you're talking about. But if someone starts attacking you, David, and you fight back, I will not tell you that that's wrong. And if I did, I made a mistake, and I'm sorry, but I don't know exactly what the context is. Same video, David Smith again. YouTube won't let me comment in a reference to that thing beginning with T. Haha. Just FYI, I noticed that some people can get away with saying words and phrases and others can't. It's all YouTube playing silly buggers. I should move to alt tech. Finally, a comment we completely agree on. In fact, I might have to edit slightly what I've been talking about. What we've been talking about in this comment. I'll just cut little bits out here and there. Yeah, but you're right about that. Yeah. Lisa Croy Freedom. Hello, Lisa. Anthony Peake book launch. Good for you, Ben. Read the cash. Yeah. Why I never go to London, amongst other reasons. Was that Coke you were drinking, Ben? Tut, that stuff won't rehydrate you, only good for cleaning the bog. Funny hearing you talk about Brian. Seems so long ago now. Yeah, I can't remember what I was drinking, Lisa. What was it? I don't know. I can't remember. But yeah, Brian Branch, the boxing vicar. Yeah, it was he who told me that story. I mean, I think it was actually because we had Anthony Peake came on the show in the early days. I should invite him back. Got to finish his book. But yeah, he had that experience. Pull over now. Yeah, that was him. David Smith again on reply to comment 71. It's alarming how quickly woke has entered into the lexicon. 2 out of 3 football podcasts I listen to is for my team. I've started using this term when complaining about stuff. Good. I don't think that's alarming, David. I think that's encouraging. The cost of a pint going up at the ground is woke. Oh, right. I don't think that's... Well, that's a misuse of the adjective, but it's a general... If they're using it that way, then that's the wrong word. It's just, I think rip-off is the actual word. Fans being warned against bringing flares to the games is woke. Refs giving out the yellow cards for dissent is woke. It's like a catch-all term for things I don't like. Yeah, it shouldn't be, David. It should be used a bit more accurately, I think. So much of what is blamed on the woke left is actually just conservatives railing against liberals. Maybe it is, yeah, but then the liberals railing against conservatives say the same thing as racist, misogynist, and things like that. It's maybe there's a bit of whataboutery here, David. The recent Roald Dahl thing is a classic example of this. No one I know on the left cares whether Augustus Gloop is called fat or not. We're much more bothered about the NHS being privatised. It's liberal publishing houses wanting to sell more books who made the changes, not a secret cabal of woke lefties plotting against what language kids can use to make fun of fictional greedy German kids. Well, he's only German in the film, but the book is actually of indeterminate nationality. It's not actually revealed what country these people are in. We assume it's an English-speaking country, maybe the United States, Britain, etc. But it is the UK, because at one point there's a 50p piece, I remember. But the thing about it is, David has just explained how it's more than that. I mean, if what he's saying about Disney is true, and indeed the video evidence he's provided indicates that's the case with Disney, it's probably the case with publishing houses such as Puffin, who that's the Penguin imprint that makes children's books. That there is actually a psycho-political agenda behind this. Because if they want to sell more books, they won't make these changes, you see. I mean, in fact, they have backed down, actually, I'm pleased to say. I was going to cover this in an article I haven't had time to write yet, but it's actually the copyright owners. I think they sold it to Netflix or something awful like that. They've backed down. They're now going to produce. They're now going to do what they did with Tintin, and they're going to produce like 2 editions, one woke and the other unwoke. So people, both parents and individuals, will be able to choose. That's actually a major climb down on their part because of the massive outcry. Even Queen Camilla spoke out against it. Now you could guess what I think about that. I think what was the plan to do what they did to Roald Dahl was, I think, utterly atrocious. And I'm very pleased that it's that we've had this end to it, or at least, well, they're going to bring out 2 editions, and one's going to sell like hotcakes, and the other no one's going to touch. So there you go. Reply to comment 71. Love you, bro. Fantastic. Watch every minute of it. Hi, Hugo. Hi, G. Hi, Dark Corners. Hello, darling. How you doing, Jackie? And Gary Rowan says hello, Jackie, and X. Yeah. Honestly, David, your comments are actually quite interesting, I must say. I do enjoy them. I do enjoy writing to them. Replying to them. Lisa Cry Freedom. It really is fab to see such wonderful graffiti, i.e. art, in the concrete jungles. I know, Lisa, it is, isn't it? When I saw the art, I've actually seen the artists, and I filmed the artists from a distance. But I did thank them for brightening the place up. I've noticed in my area, Ben, that there are more and more paintings appearing on the sides of buildings, which is fab. You'll see the same when you come to the conference in New Brighton. That's right, yeah. Lisa's Pride Freedom Conference. Do get to it. I'm speaking, yes. Right, Zoella says here on reply to comment 71, have you found Thomas Barden-Reish's new channel yet? Yes, I have. Thomas actually commented on one of my videos, and he did. It's called Keith Wood's Supremacist. He's got a thing about Keith Woods, doesn't he? He really has. He's got a right hate on for Keith Woods. But Thomas does have a new channel. Now, he did say he wasn't really coming back, but he does have a new channel out. His mate Unwashed is still up there. I was actually on his channel the other day, Unwashed. There we go. Oh, there's a new bedtime story. Brilliant. I'll check that out later. Oh no, that's just Keith Woods. And this is Keith Woods himself. Oh no, you're right. It is Thomas. Sorry, it is Tom. Oh no, I've actually watched this one. Yes. Thomas.
At this point in time, I have an outline.
Oh, he doesn't cut his hair, has he?
In my head.
There we go. Hey Thomas, welcome back. And he says, "Hi Ben."
About how
I'm not really back, Ben. Anyway, hope you're doing well. I am. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks very much. Yeah. So Thomas, yeah, you're right. It is Keith Woods' Supremacist. I thought that's just Keith Woods, but of course, Keith Woods has been banned from YouTube, hasn't he? But yeah, okay. Keith Woods is like I don't know how you're familiar with these social circles. Keith Woods is kind of like one of Thomas's nemesis Psy or something, and vice versa. But thanks, Zoella. Thank you very much. Zoella's got a who is Zoella? Let's have a look. Oh, she's quite nice looking. Now I won't show you her channel because her name is a little bit strange. She's a nice looking lady anyway. Bronto Max says in reply to comment 71, I opened the video transcript and searched for keywords in my question to find my replies instantly. Oh right, I see. Could you do that? Can you do that? Oh damn, I was just giving you sorry. Delete. Hang on, I've got to go back to my clipboard because it still has Keith Woods Supremacist on it. Here we go. Can you do that, Bronto? I didn't know you could do that. Oh right. I suppose that's one of the functions of YouTube now, is it? Oh, good. Good, right. Okay, Tessa1111. Thanks for roving mic during cough. Helps. Right, my cough is a little bit better now, you'll be glad to know, yeah. And Tessa says, Ricola cough drops might help. Oh, thanks. It's actually gone away by itself. It was lingering like hell, but it is actually better now. I think it was maybe I may have had COVID and not. I might have had COVID and not known it. I mean, I tested myself; it was negative, but I could have still had it. Woody Black says, my comment on this video has been shadow banned. If I log out, I can't see it. Oh right, that does happen, unfortunately. Yeah. And Woody says, I'm not sure if it's because I put a link or it's because I mentioned academic agent. Probably the former. I think you can talk about academic agent on YouTube, But I think he himself, the man himself, well, I suppose he's not banned. He's still around. But I can see your comment. Obviously, I'm replying to your comments. It appears here, Woody. But yeah, so it's YouTube weird like that. Okay, JB. 1899 was unfortunately a letdown, in my opinion. The plot was too overladen, and the creators felt the need to implement woke elements into the show. Dark was free of that. If you should watch it, you have to watch it in the German original with subtitles. The English dubbing is horrendous. Well, JB, yeah, I'll check out Dark, because I know it's from the same team. 1899 I didn't think it was excessively woke. I think it had a few wokey bits in it. I thought there was some things a bit incredulous, like one of the characters is a heavily pregnant woman, yet she's sort of running around firing guns and things like that, which of course a woman in advanced pregnancy couldn't do. But there you go. It's all a simulation anyway. JB says, what's your opinion on David Paulides and the missing 411 phenomena? Oh my goodness me. I could go on for hours about that, JB. I think it's very interesting. I've done a review of the third movie, which is Missing 411 UFO Connection. It's in UFO Truth magazine, though not the last edition, the one before. I'm sure I'll come back to this. I think it is real. That's basically it. I think it's real. And you want to go? Maybe we'll go into details on that in a different video. J. Alfred Baldwin says, it's not myth. Missing 411 is happening all the time. Scary but true. Yes, indeed, Jay. JB actually didn't say it was myth. He just asked me for my opinion and he called it a phenomenon. Yeah. JB, the daemon is comparable. This is on Anthony Peake book launch. The daemon is comparable with the Ant-Man in Hindu religion. All right. I think, there's actually something in Anthony's book about that. JB says, same video. Interesting thoughts that have been brought up. Thanks, JB. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. JB also, same video. Egoic self and algorithm made up of eternal influences. The newborn human being is subjected to from the cradle on and in most cases to the grave, primarily family society. Ultimately, absolutely illusory. Shadow self or the soul, repository of all experiences regarding the present or past lives. Daemon or Atman, the real or authentic self, which is connected tot the absolute reality, the unconditional to the Ein Sof, to God, if you want to call it that. Yeah, Ein Sof, is that what the Muslims call it? I know there's different words for it in different faiths, and they are kind of apparent. There's a kind of like similarity within the different theologies. Yeah, but thanks to JB, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you find that subject interesting. I certainly do. Oh, there's some more comments from JB. Anthony Chain has a great collection of well-presented and interesting near-death experiences on his YouTube channel. Oh, Anthony Chain. Oh, great. Oh, thanks. I'll check that out. Anthony Chain. Let's open another tab here. Anthony Chain. Here we go. Anthony Chain Production, right. Videos. Age of Miracles, the near-death experience. I'll show you it here. There we go. Right, the near-death experience of Deborah King. Oh yeah, it's quite long comments here. Various times. Oh, I find these very interesting. I'll give them a sub because I'm interested in this sort of thing. Thanks. Right, where are we now? Okay. Nearly at the end of the... Whoops, what happened there? Oh. Got to scroll down again, guys. I just accidentally clicked the monetization tab. I don't want to monetize my videos. There's no point. I'd only get about £5 a week, and you bastards, you bastard would demonetize me within 5 minutes, wouldn't you? Ugh. I'm not going to delete. I'm not going to edit the thing where I'm talking about the trans thing. I mean, why not? I mean, I'm not going to censor myself like that. It's no point. Oh, just wait till we get onto the Apollo Detectives. There's going to be loads on that, I'll tell you. Loads. JB. Those planes of existence, near-death experience, are ultimately just as illusory as the material existence in which we live, just a lot more comfortable, because one is not bound by the material body. The only thing that is actually is the all the Ein. That's interesting. Thanks. Yeah, it's a lot of people say that it's kind of a projection. It's like you see this in What Dreams May Come, which I'll come to. It's a residual self-image. Because the wife a man dies and his wife's an artist. I'll come into it. Well, I'm going to discuss this film and the book in great detail soon. He goes to a heaven-like realm which is made of paint because his wife's an artist. JB says, thanks for the London trip. You're very welcome, JB. Glad you liked it. TK, reply to comment 71. Is he obsessed by something for over a year? Oh, nearly a year. I think it's Charles Scott. It was, about 10 months. And what about you and the moon landing? Obsessed by something that happened 50 years ago. The difference between you and I, Ben, is that I'm looking for the truth, whereas you're looking for evidence for your theory that there is a malicious elite hiding science. No, I'm looking for the truth too, TK. And the thing is, obsessed by something that happened 50 years ago. The difference is, what happened 50 years ago was not some quibble over how someone got into a conference or didn't, or bought a ticket or didn't, or got an email who didn't. It's what you're obsessed with, not how long you are obsessed with it, that I think counts. I think I am looking for the truth. I'm looking for evidence for your theory that there's a maliciously hiding science. Well, I'm looking for that evidence for it, but I'm willing to listen to evidence contrary, TK, which is why I have discussions with you. When we get onto the Apollo detectives, I can see how many comments there are. It's probably going to be like 2 hours just doing that. Definitely. Here we go, the Apollo Detectives 12, Steve Mumbling Special, Neil Peel. Am I first to comment? Yes, you are, Neil. Well done. Popcorn Boxing says, is that Bruce Dickinson in your happy? Dark Corners, the tinfoil hat goes to Neil. It does indeed for this video, yes. Brett Atkinson is here and says, on Apollo Detectives 12, Jason Brescia's Archaics. I don't know what that means. No idea. And here we go. Israel Diego Rivera. Here we go. Israel Diego Rivera, genius to the real genius, says Steve Mumbling using bullying tactics, pushing points, irrelevance to providing evidence that they went for sure. Yeah, basically. That's it, basically. And BZ Garson says in reply, no, the defectives are not used to being confronted and challenged with facts regarding their many specific claims. Yes, we are, BZ. That's why he had Blue Earth thing on. Steve is not actually confronting us or challenging us with any facts. And BZ says, too much mutual backslapping. It shocked them. Great stuff from the Mumbles. What? Too much mutual backslapping. We do disagree amongst ourselves. There's some people who've been on our panel who don't speak to each other. And indeed, the reason that we tend to stick around with people who just believe as we do or agree with us about so many things is because so few others are willing to even speak to us. They just say, it's insulting. It's nonsense. So great stuff for the Mumbles. He just mouthed off. That's all he did. Oh, Jin Skim Pivot says, because 3 into 1 isn't a bullying tactic, right? Yeah, well, 3 into 1 was the amount Steve was talking and everyone else was talking. And we have a long thread here. Stephen Truthseeker says here, Neil Geddes Ward is closed-minded. He is like a lot of people are really not what they seem. What you talk? Neil Geddes Ward, Stephen? What are you talking about? In what way? This is weird. Neil Geddes Ward is closed-minded. He, like a lot of these people, are really not what they seem. Stephen, I know you, and I'm surprised you say that. I thought you'd assume Neil was on... Because Neil's very much on our side with a lot of things. In what way is he closed-minded? And Neil says here, closed-minded? Really? Why would you say that? I research paranormal topics and speak on them. You have to be open-minded, even broach into that area. So, Stephen, are you confusing Neil with someone else? I think maybe you are. Stephen says to Neil, because of your response in the past to my comments, you don't believe in any types of fairies or demonic portals. Maybe he doesn't, I don't know. Let's ask him. Neil says, I did not say that. I'm open to the possibility of these things. Did you not know I do talks and presentations of this kind of stuff? Right. And Jim Skin says to Neil, closed-minded, really? Why would you say that? Quote, that's a quote. Possibly because you casually deleted an entire video and its salient points, some of which were triggering reasonable debate. Jim, no, he deleted it because there was a mistake in it. There was a mistake in it. He just uploaded a new version with the mistake corrected. He actually said this. But hats off, mate. Your altruism relating to space saving on the YouTube servers is laudable. I couldn't possibly have been deleted because the points you couldn't cope with were snowballing. Oh, God. Neil, I knew this would happen. I knew that when you deleted that video, and that's the end of an hour. When you did that, I said to you, didn't I, that they would... this is how they would frame it. I told you they would frame it this way. And it's completely false. Jinskin Pivot, you're completely wrong about Neil. Anyway, that's the end of an hour. I've got to record Steve Bassett. I'll be back after that. Okay, welcome to... Excuse me, my nose is itching. Welcome to hour number 2. It's about 2 hours after the last time I spoke to you. I've been recording an interview with Steve Mumbling. Bracing myself for all the comments I'm going to get on the Apollo Detectives video, which I got. We had Steve True Speak Truth. Steve Truth. I almost said Steve Trueblue there. He's been... I haven't seen him for a while. Steve Truthseeker. Haha, Mumbling spoiled the show with his drama before it even started. Why do you want to give the time of day to a spoilt brat like that? You're correct, Stephen. He completely did a big dump in the middle of it. As I've explained in the video itself, really it wasn't a debate at all. I was personally, I think I did mention this, I was personally opposed to the idea of having him on the panel, but I did accept that it was up to Colin Sugrin because of Woodchippergate. Colin didn't seem to object, so I was willing to go along with it. He's not coming back, I'll tell you. Well, that's probably the best thing when you say he's not coming back. So he's been on, he's said his piece, which he didn't really say anything really. So and that's it. He's had his time, and I don't think anyone wants him back. He's not done anything to really give us any reason to invite him back. So there. Keith Smith says, I know, he spoilt the show with evidence, logic and reason. Oh my goodness me, evidence, logic and reason. Oh, you goose, you fool. It's fluffy rubbish, right? Keith, is that what you call logic and reason? Is it? You perfectly and totally illustrate the point I make, Keith, about skeptics in my skeptic videos. Do you watch one of them? Watch the one I did at Sufon. That's probably the best version. Stephen Truseeker, he's a troll. Yeah, exactly, Stephen. Bill Bailey says, terrible, isn't it? An informed man who knows his subject and has actually done the relevant calculations should have the temerity to ask such impertinent questions like, explain to me your calculations. Your man fell on his arse at the first hurdle. Bullshit, Bill, bullshit. He said, explain to me your calculations. Now, this was an ad-libbed conversation. There was no prearranged agenda. Or there was no bullet points given to us. Steve didn't present us with any lists beforehand, so Scott therefore was not able to bring together the necessary documentation. I should point out this to you, Bill, and I'll mention this to everyone. I have recorded a video with Scott and with his friend Robert, and that's going to be presented on HPANWO Radio. And what's more, on the Apollo Detectives YouTube channel, Scott and Robert have already done a video completely discrediting and eviscerating Steve Mumbling's minuscule little arguments with the very calculations that he said, snapped his fingers and said, conjure these, go on, get me them now. Get me these calculations now. I don't care if you haven't prepared them, you haven't got the documents, get me them now. And you may have noticed whenever Scott did try to explain, Steve just kept interrupting him. Right. Oh, we've got a long thread here. Show more replies. Here we go. Neil has waded in. Keith Smith. Oh, Steve Mumbling is a light... Steve Mumbling is a lighthouse of reason surrounded by a vast and murky sea of nonsense. That sounds like something bloody Bowler Hat Man would say. Neil of the Peel of the Paranormal Peep Show. The thing is, Steve does not research in depth the alternative views. He just says rubbish to everything. Case in point is the Apollo 14 rock that has been found to originate from Earth. He just laughed it off as nonsense. But here we publish the NASA website it's taken from. Exactly. Jarrah did a presentation on this on a previous show, and then they say, oh, it must have been a meteor from Earth. It's bad luck, guys. You went all the way to the moon. You picked up one of the rarest minerals you actually get on the moon. It's a little bit of the Earth that found its way to the moon. Oh dear. Oh. Keith says, Steve was the only one on the panel who knew the difference between HF radio waves and micro communication. No, he wasn't. Enough said. No, he wasn't, Keith. Do check out the Apollo Detectives YouTube channel. Scott and Rob have just done a video about that. I'm also, in a couple of weeks, I'll be covering it on the HPANWO show on HPANWO Radio. Neil says, Steve was the only one of the panel who did not know about the Apollo 14 moon rock coming from Earth. Does not matter to me about the communications. I worked with satellite technologies anyhow. Present tense. What is more important is the fact that he tries to rubbish away our points, but we show the NASA websites that back up many of our points rubbished by Steve. You want to come on and discuss that with us? Max Q. Oh, here we go. All the usual suspects are coming out today. Explain how you work with satellite technology. Joe down the road works with telephones and the call centre. He's not a communications engineer. Max Q said, Werner von Braun did not go to Antarctica to collect moon rocks. Yeah, he did. Ben's just repeating more woo lies. NASA still had some of the best geologists in the world. Why would they send a rocket engineer to do the job of geologist? There's photographs of him there. Werner von Braun took a holiday in Antarctica to study how the scientists there survive and work in such harshness. Remember, his dream was a base on the moon. Besides that, any geologist could easily tell the difference between a rock from the moon that's landed on Earth and a rock brought back by Apollo. Well, yeah, but he did go to Antarctica. So you said he didn't go to. He went on there on holiday, did he? He went on there on holiday and didn't think, well, because I'm here, maybe I shall look for some rocks. There might be some lying around. Didn't he do that? Or did he just want to sun himself in Antarctica, did he? Strip down to his swimming trunks and have a dip in the briny, yeah? Make sure you bring your towel along to beat the Germans to the best ice flows, yeah? Come on, man, Max. Of course he went there to look for rocks. Keith says to Max, according to Ben's guru and prophet, David Icke. You're bloody droid, aren't you? He's not my guru or prophet. The moon is a spaceship. I think Ben is a very fine chap, even if his theories are all woo-woo nonsense. All right. Well, Keith, if you're saying that, you're not droid. That's for certain. I don't believe the moon is a spaceship. I think David's got that wrong. The moon, I think, is a natural satellite. It does take some explanation. It has certain features that need explaining, such as it has one of the least eccentric orbits of any object we know of in the solar system. It's also, coincidentally, it seems to be virtually the exact same size on the celestial sphere in terms of apparent size as the Sun. Hence, you get things like solar eclipses. So those things need explaining, but no, it's not a spaceship. I think it probably has, judging by its low density, it probably has some large internal cavities, I would say. Maybe some caves and things inside it which are quite large. They may even be artificial, created by extraterrestrials, or maybe even human bases, I don't know. But I don't think it's a space itself. It may well have large artificial structures on there, especially underground structures, and on the dark side of the moon there may be some artificial structures, but it's not a spaceship. Max Q says, fine chaps don't say one thing to one person, something different to another. The wet flag is a fine example. When Scott there says he says it's a wet flag, behind his back he admits it's not. Two-faced. I think they call people like Ben. And then we have here Neil quoting here, mentioning it's a quote for someone talking about the moon rocks, and then the NASA website. Yes. So, as NASA are now your chosen authoritative source on lunar samples. This is Jim Skin Pivot quoting Neil, talking about the moon rocks being found from the NASA website. I actually had to read that twice just to make sure I wasn't mistaken. So, as NASA are now your chosen authoritative source on lunar samples, how is it you casually miss how they said it came to be on the moon, Neil? I'm pretty sure they said that just as ejecta reaches the Earth from other heavenly bodies after asteroid impacts, similar impacts on ancient Earth caused ejecta to reach the moon. We did say that. Jarrah said that. What he said was, it seems to be extremely unlucky and a really unfortunate coincidence that this happened to be the sample they picked up. It seems NASA are entirely credible, but only if you paraphrase and misrepresent them on one generalized detail. We didn't paraphrase them, Jim. We didn't misrepresent them. We said that it was ejected from the Earth. At least that's what they're claiming. Similarly, yes, ejector, blah de blah. You leave out the most of the conclusions they reach in the same article. No, we went through the entire article with Jarrah. This is just more closed-mindedness and rather obtuse logic. If one rock comes from Earth, then it must mean that NASA somehow decided to let that slip out in the sure and certain knowledge that this would not only reveal the hoax, but also render all the other lunar samples fake, even though the newsworthiness of the article is in the fact that it is about one Apollo 14 sample in isolation. Obvious questions follows. Well, but yeah, it just seemed that though it was a very important one. If I remember Jarrah's presentation, they were making specific claims about this particular sample, and then it turns out it actually came from the Earth. The obvious question follows. If you enthusiastically trumpet that only one rock originates from Earth because NASA said so, Neil, spelling his name wrong, where do all the others come from? I'm not against the idea that these rocks actually came from the moon. Moon rocks can be found. They can be found on Earth. I know geologists could tell if they've actually been on Earth for millions of years and they actually landed from the moon. But also, of course, artificial, robot spacecraft can collect rocks too. Jin says to Neil, quote, does not matter to me about the communications. That's quoting Neil. You basically closed your mind to that rather enormous aspect of the evidence then. Is that it? Got it. Jin then also says, quoting Neil, Neil has re-edited the original cut to amend a minor error. Yes. What was this minor error, Neil? Yeah, this is what you're all jumping on, saying, Neil, he deleted comments and stuff like that. Oh, my goodness me. I knew this would happen. I told Neil, they're not going to they're going to misrepresent the reason for you deleting this, changing the video, Neil says, if it's nonsense, how is it you can frank a postcard on the moon with an ink pad? How is it that the lunar regolith falls to the ground before the astronauts do, when they hop, like in the jump salute? Good point. Yes, that Smoke and Mirrors video is very good on that. Jin Skin Pivot replies to Neil, the same reason you can use liquid gel and certain mineral oil lubricants in space. Well, you can use them in low Earth orbit, but as Scott explained, he goes into more detail actually in our more recent video. The effects of vacuum has on materials is when you reduce or increase the hardness of the vacuum, the effects increase logarithmically, and that surprised me when I found out about that. I thought, what's the difference between torr to the -6 and torr to the -12? It turns out there's a huge amount. I didn't think it made any difference, but it does. The jump salute is self-explanatory. The astronaut is propelling himself straight up. The soil he disturbed is merely pushed away from his feet in a sloping trajectory, not straight up. John Young is still on his way up as the soil is settling. Well, that can be. If you actually look at the Smoke and Mirrors video, they cover other forms of evidence like that, not just whether one thing's going up and down and the other's going in a ballistic trajectory. Because then you would, of course, if it's going different directions, it will go at different rates and it'll hit the ground first. But in Smoke and Mirrors, there are other examples of that. Max Q says to Neil, you get Dr. Matthew Radovsky to design and build a postal kit and test it before flight. The original Apollo 15 postal kit was left on the moon, but a replica can be seen at the National Postal Museum. I notice you woos never include the following when talking about or showing edited video clips of the event. And it's Scott. By golly, it even works in a vacuum. This is astronauts talking. Scott. But not too well. It's the first time, so I guess they're just learning. Dave Reese cancels the envelope. Erwin, you can put a thumbprint on there, Dave. Scott, well, if there's room left, Erwin, Scott, I got several dusty thumbprints. Now I'll stick this bag in our special mail pouch here and we'll deliver it when we return. Alan, Roger. Dave puts the envelope in the post office bag and has some trouble getting it closed properly. Dishonest and or ignorant to the core, you defectives. And that's the end of that thread. I don't know, I can't answer that myself, that bit. And we have a truth seeker. It says Marley Pumpkin is a character from the film Spinal Tap. Oh right. Marley says thanks for the compliment. My favourite film. CCG. Was it Artie Fulkin? Steve and Truth Seeker might. I don't know. I've never seen that film. I mean, the Marley Pumpkin reference, that's the first time I heard him anyway. Israel Diego Rivera Genius to the Real Genius says, Anthony C. Sutton. Oh, good, I'm glad you mentioned this, because I did remember to bring this up myself, Diego Rivera. Anthony C. Sutton proves Wall Street funded the Soviet Union. What about the Cambridge spying, Steve? Steve thinks Iraq still has weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, Anthony Sutton. I did mention this. I can't remember if Neil included it in his edit, but Steve Mumbling does in his, which is basically the raw files just spliced and then just uploaded. The National Suicide by Anthony Sutton is worth reading. It shows about how the Cold War essentially. It was played out on one level as a conflict, but at a higher level it was a cooperation. And this is not to do with just the space races, it is generally everything. The Cambridge spy ring was interesting. These were four. I mean, there was five. There was a couple more that were never caught. There were four very, very highly connected individuals. Guy Burgess, Kim Philby, Anthony Blunt, and Donald McLean, who reached very, very high levels of elitism within the intelligence services. McLean was in the Foreign Office. Blunt was like keeper of the Royal Pictures. Yet ever since they were from Trinity College, Cambridge, they were recruited as Soviet agents. And Blunt was the only one caught. All the others defected to the Soviet Union. They all did a runner. I've actually covered this in great detail in a video I made called Spies of London, which I much recommend. I'm thinking of doing another one of those. Count Kafka says, these are all Apollo Detectives videos. Whether or not Mumbling's point or analysis are correct, he has the personality and manners of a pure schoolboy. Yeah, absolutely. Jim Skim Pivot says here, he's up against the door frame. Right, this is referring to Aldrin coming out on Apollo 11, yeah. No, his place is actually up against the console. All you have to do is follow the curved upper corners, Scott. The E, G, and G ink tests do not show damage due to vacuum outgassing, quite the opposite. All mentions of damage refer to the potential of radiation, and mentions of cracking in the same paper relate to the flexing and bending of films while at extremely low temperature. If Jim, I recommend you watch the latest thing. That you go to the Apollo Detectives and watch Scott and Robert's latest video, where Robert talks about the experiments he did with vacuum and film. Quote: "Film was loaded into the assembly in a dark room, and the Nikkor tank was then positioned in the chamber. When the evacuation of the chamber had reached equilibrium at approximately 10 to the minus 10 Hg each..." It doesn't help actually that there's about 4 or 5 different measurements for air pressure, par, milligrams Hg, torr, etc. The light source was turned on for an approximate time to produce a graded series of exposures on the film. At this reduced pressure, the film, along with the control film exposed in the same way at atmospheric pressure, was processed, and the resulting densities of both films were compared. No essential difference was observed. You mustn't make false claims, Scott, but if the paper is as credible as you infer, then you have to live by what it says. Well, Jim, have you seen the experiments that that Robert did? Have you seen the Aulis paper, the Aulis paper on that? Jim, Ben, addressing me personally. The hard vacuum, often cited by Mr. Allen as a major hindrance to film photography in space, is patent nonsense. Vacuum is a state, not a force, and it is in fact a measure of emptiness, and if something is prone to outgas, it will outgas off at the first moment negative pressure is reached. Gassing off also occurs in positive pressure, but that doesn't mean something is deteriorating. The smell inside a new car is the compounds in most of the polymers gassing off. What is more significant in this argument is pretty much the same as the radiation issue. The effects of vacuum will be cumulative over time. The task of people such as Kodak being to drastically slow or mitigate outgassing rates, such that the duration of the exposure to vacuum does not render materials used prohibitively susceptible. well, maybe as you said, they made the film was especially thin, but it wasn't treated in that way. Not Jan Lundberg, H.J.P. Douglas Arnold. He actually confirmed that. Marcus repeatedly used this hard vacuum gambit, but yet has yet to implicate Kodak or DuPont in the conspiracy, has yet to explain how photographic film is used in high vacuum in electron microscopes, has yet to explain why no physics PhD agrees with him, has yet to explain why he doesn't deny pre-Apollo space photography and Russian spacewalk film on essentially unmodified for vacuum camera gear. Vacuum can only result in force when positive pressure is exposed to it, in which case it is the positive pressure seeking to equalize, providing the motive element, not the void. Marcus, take it away. I mean, if you haven't explained that yet, maybe he will explain it. But there are, as you know, Jin, if you watch the Apollo Detectives channel, and you'll know that we have done experiments. Owless have done experiments as well in that area. So I think this data needs, if the data is right, it needs explaining. If the data is wrong, let's do the experiment again till we get it right. But you can't ignore it. DJ B2 says, Ben, I have mentioned you to Christina Gomez. Hopefully she'll check your stuff out. Oh, thank you, DJ. Yeah, well, I do comment sometimes. She may have seen my comments. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I'd love to be on her show. She's welcome to do a show with me as well. And she's really very, very switched on young lady. She is. Yeah. If I was her dad, I'd be very proud of her. For someone so young, she's really come a long way. And you know what? She's not scared to take on the bloody backslappers as well. Like she did this really good article about Lou Elizondo, and it's called "Who is Lou? No, who are you?" And it's like taking on that "Who is Lou" film, and she does a damn good job. She makes a lot of the points that I've made about backslapping culture in ufology. Marley Pumpkin says on Apollo Detectives, Steve Mumbling destroys the other three immature losers. Right. Is that the extent of your contribution, Marley? Just one sentence? One sentence? 8 words? Stephen destroys the other three immature losers. I could say 2 + 2 = Batang Batang Biscuit Barrel. Would that make sense to you? Moving on. Jam Noise. Hey Jackie, how you doing, darling? You alright? Steve, just Google it is not evidence or an argument. You are rude and come across as miserable and aggressive, asking people to just admit how they know nothing whilst you get all your facts from Google. LMFAO, Steve, you are a waste of time and space. If you can dish it, surely you can take it, nutter. Well said, Jackie. We have another long thread now. Jamnoy, Steve has a personality and charm of a soggy towel. I don't know about that. I don't think that's fair, Jackie. I don't think that's fair at all, unless it was a particularly soggy towel. Neil, his diary is full with dates, though. Jam. Oh, really? Can I Google for proof of that, Neil? The only true vacuum in Steve's life, I think. John Nolan. He's so funny. Bring him back on, I say. Not a bloody chance. Not a bloody chance, John. Max Q. Not an argument. Ad hominem, etc. Oh, God. Oh, dearie me. We're sliding down into it's a descending spiral of tit for tat now, Max. It really is. Now, let's see if he applies the rules the same as he would if Steve or myself had said the same about you. He won't. He'll make up some BS, of course. Ben will let anything slide. Can't think why. Well, no, I'm just laughing. I know it's an ad hominem attack, Max, but I'm just laughing. Look, I'm not pretending I'm not partisan in this. I am. Why not Google some stuff on the subject's hand instead of how much pussy Steve's getting? Educate yourself a bit, see the defectives talk nonsense. Why not go to your local radio club, watch them bounce signals off the moon using low-power VHF equipment and come back confident in saying you defectives are dead wrong, and I know because instead of sitting on my ass using drugs and listening to Clueless, I took the time to educate myself. There's nothing wrong with using drugs, by the way. I used you myself in moderation. Excuse me. But when it's so clearly distorting views of reality, it's time to slow down. I used to love a joint, but even though it's legal here, I have to refrain due to my security clearance. Not smoked for ages. Feels so much better, try it. Yeah, Max. I don't know if you are whom you say you are. I know you've. I've known many people who pretend they live in countries they don't and have security clearances that they don't. But you see, the thing about bouncing, you're causing bouncing signals off the moon. No one's pretending you can't bounce signals off the moon. I don't know what point you're making. I mean, the idea that you need the retroreflector to do that is interesting. Anyway, Jam Noise says, my comment does not include you in any way. Go to talk to someone that cares. I won't even read your comment. Max Q to Jam. I believe that as much as I believe Henderson. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's have a look. The two things you have in common. Both of you talk nonsense then run away. I think this is kind of an argument now between Jam Noise and Max. Yeah, okay, whatever you say, you are right. You know everything else is wrong. I'm so glad you have Ben, at least. Or what else would you have? Jam also says, that's right, run away. What I really hear you say is, please talk to me and notice me, LMFAO. Okay, Jam, I thought this might be just a two-hander with Jam Noise and Max, in which case I wouldn't bother reading it, but Max Q then replies this. I know enough about radio communications to know the defectives are clueless. In fact, so do millions of others. They didn't think their ridiculous claim through properly. Well, again, we got the data. Look, the data. Scott has found the documents now, Max. If you want to go and show him how he's wrong, fine. But you know, this was like sprung on him in the middle of this recording. So you know, you can't always necessarily have these things to hand. If they had, they would have realised things people use every day, like satellite TV, would be impossible. Not really. I mean, a satellite is a craft, something orbiting which has a much more powerful broadband transmitter. EME moon bounce is impossible according to the defectives. I don't think that's impossible. Yet ham amateur radio people do it regularly. You must have a nice distinctive voice going on the work you do. Oh, she does. She's got a lovely voice, and she can do accents and things like that. You could go to your local amateur radio club and bounce that voice off the moon and hear the return. Yeah, I could just listen up into my transmitter and I'll go bzz, bzz. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Richard D. Hall. Oh, it works. That way you would know the defectives talk nonsense. I doubt you will. That will require a bit of effort for those who people believe, like Henderson, are generally lazy and have no problem being spoon-fed BS. Well, the thing is, like, you're bouncing a voice. Now, you see, bouncing a signal off the moon is one thing. Like, it's bouncing a voice is different. With voices, you have multiple signals. If it's an analog signal of different levels, or it's a digital signal with information in code, in like binary code or something. Now, could you bounce that off the moon? And when you go a little bit further, could you bounce something else when there's a video carrier as well, which would mean TV, which would mean an even more complicated signal. Therefore, could that be bounced off the moon? Because if it could, why do we bother with satellites, Max? And she says, and then Max also replies to Jam. I think he likes you. Is she female? I don't know. Maybe she still likes you. I don't know. You're playing the game woos play. Why watch videos? Why comment? You must be lonely. That type of stuff. Well, that's what you do, Max. You have to invent a reason other than they're wrong, and I'm showing you they're wrong for fun and my own education. I must admit it does make me despair sometimes, and friends, yes I have some, often ask why bother, but then the same could be asked why I give up my free time to help educate people in radio communications at no cost to them or benefit to me. I get a buzz out of helping people pass. What you progress, you become. Very technical examinations. You could get a foundation license in a few months and know through theory and practical applications those defectives are talking BS. Well, what if we did that and then agreed with the Apollo detectives and Max? What if we did that? What would you say then? Where would you raise the bar after that? Because you'd have to raise the bar, wouldn't you? But apart from that, I mean, I comment sometimes on skeptic videos because I know that people who watch the videos will be scrolling down and reading the comments, and it's good they get to see the other side of the story, which I think is what motivates you guys to do that to me, which is fine. I don't have a problem with people not seeing both sides of the story. Steve mumbling says to Neil, My, really, Neil, I thought you were seriously against ad hominem attacks. And Steve says to Jam Noise, Yes, Neil, why don't you have me back on? Perhaps you could explain to everyone. And Neil says to Steve, Who's attacking who? Yeah. Steve, why do you want to come back on? Haven't you said everything you need to say? Marley Pumpkin says, on Apollo Detectives 12, the Bono lookalike is getting very agitated. I knows he hasn't a clue. Oh, right, that is Scott. I don't know if Scott will be insulted or complimented by that, but are you insulted or flattered, Scott, being compared to Bono? But he has a clue. It's just he didn't have the documents to hand at that moment. John Nolan says, Hi Ben, I need to get Steve. You need to get Steve on again. He's so funny. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, not John, but I'm afraid I think that's the end of Steve's contribution, and I suggest you can watch plenty of his videos and watch my videos about him and me replying to him, but I think live interaction with Steve is finished now. Marley Pumpkin says, Steve Mumbling is a hero, winding up these immature adults with their fantasies. And Jam Noise says, and Steve is acting like an adult? ? You must need to grow up then too. Yeah, good point, Jackie. Tadpole says on Apollo Detectives, Steve comes across like a petulant child. Even when shown NASA's own documents, he refutes it also. Barry T says underneath, do you know how many files Steve has? Thousands and thousands. That proves he's right. Yeah, and he can. Well, maybe if he sent us a list of bullet points, we could have had this information to hand for the debate. We basically just left it and let him come on and respond to various presentations that we were doing, and he immediately went off onto another topic. David's Splendid Isolation. Steve is acting like a spoilt and petulant child, continually interrupting, preventing anyone from answering without interjecting with absolute rubbish. It's obvious he came into the discussion with gotcha questions that would take time to find out live. Yeah. Then when they don't answer immediately, he can claim they don't know what they're talking about. Correct. Rude, patronising, in love with his own voice. I don't know why you keep entertaining him when you wouldn't entertain a disingenuous troll. Yeah, Justin Cox says, Crybaby JFC. Oh, shut up, Justin. But you're right, I mean, we're not going to entertain him anymore, Dave. He's had his go now, and that's it. TK says on reply to comment 71, David was correct here. You believe the news when it suits, but cry foul when they don't agree. Maybe you should listen to yourself, Ben. No dignity clinging on to bollocks. But, I don't believe the news when it suits me. What do you mean believe the news? When have I said I believe the news? I mean, I watched the news. I go to news sites and use them as references. This doesn't mean I believe every word that's in it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think, TK. Charles Scott says underneath here, no, Scott Charles, if you want to say something about another subject, Roswell or something like that, fine. But I'm not going to address you anymore regarding the topic you've talked about non-stop now for the best part of 11 months. As I said, come back with another subject. I'm not interested anymore. Apollo Detectives 12's Hatchy. Ben, oh dear, and lol. The world is definitely going mad. Too much negativity. Yeah. Well, I think we injected a bit of positivity into it, Hatchy. Going back to what TK said. I don't think I ever believe the news. I mean, I believe that I believe the dates in newspapers, for example. I believe the weather forecast to a certain point. I mean, but I never look at the news and say, right, that proves that this actually happened. I watch the news and I think, well, it's interesting that they're reporting on these UFOs. Why is that? And things like that. David Splendid Isolation. Right, this is a timestamp here. If we can get it on.
Lost. Yeah, but what you got to bear in mind is that you're a bunch of amateurs that are saying this, and NASA is saying something else. Who am I? Documents. You don't. Yeah, I haven't seen them.
Right, so yeah, appeal to authority fallacy. I know what you mean, David, yeah. Jim Skin Pivot says, question mark. The appeal to authority employed by Steve Mumbling is not fallacious, as the sources he used are fully qualified, certified, and rooted in fully published, repeatable demonstrations. Let's have a 1 in chat for fully published, repeatable demonstrations. Yeah. That's a Kevin Logan reference. The appeal to authority fallacy is actually used by Henderson and Allen on multiple levels. All right, yeah, we do. There's a bit of what about? There's a bit of, like I say, there's a bit of whataboutery here on both our sides. Henderson is claiming the NASA commissioned expert report, the Egerton, Germerhausen and Greer tests on roll film, show cracking in vacuum. It does not. It actually shows that material density in their test was unchanged between film exposed in a vacuum and film exposed conventionally. Having thus decided the NASA study is authoritative, he simply opted to lie about its results. Well, I mean, is he lying about the experiment that Robert did as well? And the experiment Owlis did as well? Experiments you could repeat if you want. This is a fallacious appeal to authority, as while the original authors are genuine authority, they are the qualified body he is, however, willing to misrepresent. This is also willful lying. No, it was all filmed. He actually has photographs and video of him using the vacuum chambers. Jim, whatever you call yourself. Alan is claiming the Owlis article shows a recent vacuum jar experiment on roll film overseen by Henderson, oddly enough concluded that the film exposed to vacuum was similarly useless. Allen is thus conferring authoritative credibility to that test. But it's data, it's evidential data. What's the problem? Is that a problem? However, the test produced perfectly usable images. No, it didn't. They were not right. He said the images were not correctly colour balanced, but this was down to the fact that no control samples were exposed conventionally, then vacuum exposed and processed first in order to establish if processing needed alterations to counter any colour hue irregularities. The roll film was not destroyed or rendered unusable. Well, it was very degraded. I mean, if there's another cause for that, I mean, was there a control? John, did Robert use a control? If so, then you need to do the experiment with a control sample. But still, you couldn't sell that in a chemist shop after you put it in the vacuum chamber. This is a fallacious appeal to authority, as none of the experiment's advocates are qualified or recognised in photophysics. It's also willful lie. Look, do you watch the Apollo Detectives? I almost said it myself. Then it's you putting me off. The Apollo Detectives video there. David Splendid Isolation. Appeal to authority is where he's saying he trusts NASA more than them. Whether something is true or false has nothing to do with who says it's true or how many say it's true. It's whether it can be supported by the actual evidence given, which he didn't do at this point, hence appeal to authority. Mumbling ought to know this, but he simply appealed to authority anyway. Jim Skin Pivot says to David, Steve is right, everything about Apollo is supported by evidence, science and repeatability. My points stand. Consensus doesn't make facts, but authoritative sources backed by some serious PhDs like doctors, engineers and surgeons is rarely in error when there is overwhelming agreement. Apollo can't be a hoax because someone says he's seen a footprint like a tennis shoe. And come on, stop straw manning, Jim. And it absolutely smells bad when appeal to valid authority is used as a conduit for lies. Cornelius Crew says, you said Steve and the rest of us Apollo record defenders would regret his unedited version once you posted yours. What exactly were we supposed to regret? You didn't post any corroborating evidence. You didn't post anything that supports Henderson's schoolboy tales. And Neil, then I'm not going to read that. You say rude. You give Neil a rude name. Did not post proof that the photos were altered Photoshop. Just your usual litany of looks like horse manure and the inane ramblings of the world's foremost authority on deliberate stupidity, Scott Henderson. It was fun watching Steve wipe that smirk off Henderson's face. Even more fun when he ran away like a little girl. Cornelius, what a load of rubbish. Firstly, what you regret, I said you would regret it because if you look, there is corroborating evidence posted. Neil adds the documents that Scott sent him, which are exactly the documents which support his point against Steve Mumbling in that so-called debate. Bumbelina, Hi Ben, absolutely superb stuff. We need more of this proper debate. It's refreshing to see people emotionally involved in their subject. Can we have a Rendlesham round table which will get everyone sorted? Superb TV, Ben. Bravo. Thank you, Bumbling. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I wouldn't call it a proper debate. I call it more like we were trying to have a discussion. Steve Mumbling kept butting in and being rude and not making any points and just using a lot of adjectives. As for a Rendlesham round table, well, unfortunately, a lot of people in the Rendlesham Forest community are not on speaking terms. I certainly wouldn't be willing to speak to certain people in that community. And this is not because of any opinion they hold on a factual issue. It's because of their conduct towards me, their personal conduct. So that's unlikely to happen, I'm afraid. But there may be, there are certain discussions on the subject with people who are willing to sit down and share a platform. Louis James says, "Why is Steve so rude and aggressive? Will it make people dismissive, even if will just make people dismissive, even if he's speaking the truth?" Well, that's what I thought. If you are going to, someone like Steve is going to, it may well discourage people, even if they're on the same side. I mean, I sometimes find the conduct of some people in the conspiracy sphere very disturbing. I mean, I made this point about Rebecca Watson. Somebody I probably wouldn't get on with if I ever met her. She has some very toxic feminist opinions, but when she was criminally harangued by the skeptic thug element, I couldn't help feeling some sympathy for her. And these weren't woo-woos. These were skeptics. Now, when I look at some of the comments Mick West gets, and then people say horrible things to him, these are people who agree with me factually, but they have nothing in common with me apart from that. I'm not, if I ever reply to Mick, I do so in a civil manner. Neil Peel says in response to Louis, "It's because he thinks he knows it all but refuses to read materials we present him. We encourage him to read points raised about Apollo in the Owless website. He just says it's rubbish. But if he's refused to say, look at the Apollo Surface Journal, then we would say we're not doing our research. If we refuse to say that, he would say we're not doing our research." Conscious Spirit says, "Hi Ben, great show as usual. I see Mumbling was at his best again. Mumbling." Thanks, Conscious Spirit. Much appreciated. Glad you enjoyed it. I have another thread here. How long is it? Oh, this subject just brings so much debate. It really does. Dave Langston. "Some interesting points for discussion made by Mumbling." Dave, were you watching the same video as me? However, if you could just let people respond, then a debate could be had. He's straight out of the bullying and shout down brigade. Yeah. Shame, as there is a genuine debate to be had. Thank you, Davey. Yes. I think so indeed, yeah. Well, thanks, Dave. That's a good observation. Jinskin Pivot. "Do you think 4-1 might be seen as a bullying tactic, Dave?" Well, if those four are, being reasonable and civil, and someone else is coming on and mouthing off, and as they always do in debates these days, look like they're winning when they're not, yes. The host claiming Steve used ad hominem is pretty obvious, though very low grade. A virtue signalling strategy intended to claim good character and greater moral awareness in the accuser. But we didn't. That's not what gave us that. It wasn't that claim that gave us that. It was our conduct, the fact that we wouldn't rise to his bait and we wouldn't emulate his behaviour. That's what gave us that, Jin. However, the same host feels the need to add his own rather self-aggrandizing piece to camera at the very end of the debate, in order that he make it clear how satisfied he is that, in his opinion, Steve was so publicly defeated. Correct. If you find it self-aggrandizing, that's absolutely fine with me. That's your perception of what I said, and I stand by what I said. He was publicly defeated. It isn't ad hominem to state facts which may or not niggle whoever they were directed at. Of course not, Jin, but it is ad hominem to say, what would you know? You're not qualified, you're a goose, you're a fool, you're talking rubbish. That's what Steve Mumbling was doing. All of these Apollo deniers are indeed amateurs, and all of them have indeed been found repeatedly to be talking rubbish. Ben can be quite a hypocrite when he wants to be, it would appear. Well, I mean, I've just answered that, guys. ZX Alien Warrior, Mumbling, the cure for insomnia. Thanks, Tino. Yeah. Jeff Moss. That Mumbles character is insufferable. Isn't he just? He really is. The Lights Below. Reply to comment 71. Hi Ben. One thing has always puzzled me about UFO beliefs, for those that do. We seem to attribute them almost superpowers. In other words, we assume they are far more advanced in terms of technology and possibly evolution, if indeed this is how they've got here in the first place. My point is that other than sightings of very fast-moving craft manoeuvring and thus giving the illusion of anti-gravity, could there indeed be aliens? but could these aliens simply be very similar to us, trying to discover space and finding us? Perhaps they are not much more advanced than we assume. Maybe we can shoot them down. Maybe they breathe oxygen and have gravity wherever they're from. My point is there a midpoint between tinfoil hatters and skeptics? Let's just assume a race called Bobans exist on a similar planet to us. They've just got to us first. If they are 50 years ahead of us, then maybe. Too much credence is given to magic, bulletproof, shiny ships, and less on turning the coin and thinking what will happen when we find a planet with life and land on it. The whole thing is then not so weird. Obviously, sci-fi doesn't help us view these things in a based light. We essentially would be the UFOs in that situation. If we went to a planet where there was intelligent life and we were we were flying spacecraft around their skies, we would become the aliens. And these Bobans, they look like us, maybe because of convergent evolution. They look like us, or maybe because in the distant past we were seeded together by another race. I don't know, but magical. No, you see, I don't think they do have superpowers. What they are doing could be explained by technology, as Arthur C. Clarke said. Any significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. If they've learned to control gravity, they could exhibit those effects. At the same time, this doesn't mean they're invulnerable to our weapons. They are physical objects. They are solid. They leave behind physical material. Aliens make footprints. You can touch them, things like that. You can freeze them and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, good points. Yeah, the midpoint between the tinfoil hatters and the skeptics. Maybe, well, that's the ideal balance, isn't it? You are kind of like a real skeptic. That is, you apportion everything to evidence before accepting it as real. Yeah. Melvin Sherman says here on Apollo Detectives, and here off-topic stuff. Right, something off-topic on that video is quite a relief, actually, Melvin. I don't believe Scott Adams is bullshit. Who's Scott Adams? I think you mean Scott Henderson. Like, I remember the reason why... Oh no, I see. Okay, you are talking about Scott Adams, the cartoonist. Yes. Like, I remember the reason why Dilbert cartoon got cancelled. Yeah. Cancellation. On the 22nd of November 2006, when Adams was asked why the show was cancelled, he explained. It was on UPN, a network that few people watch. And because some management screw-ups between the first and second seasons, the time slot kept changing and we lost our viewers. We were also scheduled to follow the worst TV show ever made, Shasta McNasty. Really? Is it worse than EastEnders? On TV, your viewership is 75% determined on how many people watch your show before yours. That killed us. And Scott Adams in 2020. On June 28, 2020, Adams claimed on Twitter that the show was cancelled because he was white and UPN had decided to focus on an African American audience and that he had been discriminated against. Bullshit. Really? Well, did the UPN actually state that? Because a lot of networks, a lot of people, such as Gary has said about Disney, a lot of TV and movie and media companies are saying that, that it's too white, it's too pale, male and stale. We need more non-white people and women. They've actually said that. So they've said that, they actually are saying that, they're doing that. They're saying that they are going to socially engineer their productions to reduce the number of white men who are there. In which case, maybe that's what happened. Have you thought about it? Seeing as networks are admitting they're doing this, why shouldn't Scott Adams have been a part of that? Why shouldn't he have been a part of that? In which case, he has a perfectly legitimate gripe. and he has every right to complain. As much as a black person would if they were taken out because they were black. They were taken out from the schedule. Do you see what I mean? So how do you know it's bullshit? Tim Simpson says on Apollo Detectives, "Damn that Kubrick fellow and his faulty lighting." Yeah, I doubt if Stanley Kubrick was involved in this. It's not in his character, as his daughter pointed out. Funny enough, his daughter Vivian didn't actually state that she thought the moon landings were real. She just said, "Oh, my father would never have anything to do with this. He had too much integrity," and I agree with her. I think he was a man of moral courage, Stanley Kubrick. He was also good friends with Andrei Tarkovsky, the Russian filmmaker, and in the Cold War, think of the information he could have passed on. The crafty nihilists. Do you seriously expect me to watch a 9-hour video, Ben? Oh, well, you're going to find out, because I'm going to try and see how far I can stretch this one, Crafty. Woody Black says, "Thanks for your comment. It will be answered approximately within the 3rd day of the upcoming Comments Reply video." Nice one, Woody. Charles Scott. Oh, hang on a second. Charles Scott says, "This had better be something new and original, Charles. It is constant abomination. You continue to..." Oh, no. Sorry. Forget it. Charles, you will please come up with something new and original if you want to take part in this program. I don't accept your criticism of me, your personal criticism of me. You say you demand an apology for what? I'm tired of talking about this. I haven't deleted any of your comments. I'm skipping some of your comments for the reasons I've already explained to you, and I stand by that. I'm just tired, Scott. Charles, I'm just tired. Just let it go. Videos from the Underground says on strategy. This is on Apollo Detectives. "Disqualify your opponent by making him prove everything he's saying. If he doesn't have the proof right at hand, then bring out the name calling." Precisely, videos. Precisely. Same video. Flashing Turtle. Great name. Great banter. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You could say it certainly was that, wasn't it? Right, long thread here. Show more replies. Jack Burns says, Apollo Detectives again, "I can't remember the name of the documentary, but quite a few film and photography experts have noticed issues with the photos, things that hinted towards studio shots rather than real outside lighting you'd expect on the moon. Steve was game to come on, but let himself down with the sheer amount of ad hominems he feels the need to deploy." Yeah. You're right, Jack. There's been several documentaries about this. The best one, I think, is probably What Happened on the Moon, and there's the book Dark Moon, Apollo and the Whistleblowers. There's several other very good ones as well. David Smith says, "So experts do matter. What about all the experts that worked on the space program? The expert in this video said it looked off, but he couldn't explain it. Not being able to explain the way something looks completely different by saying what's going on is different to saying what is going on. The problem with conspiracy theorists is they jump on the 'we don't know' answer as proof their beliefs are true." No, we jump on this doesn't fit in with the model we've been told how it's the theoretical model for how it's created, and therefore we are right to question whether that model is correct. Jack Burns says to David, "And the problem with folk who cannot answer anything is because they get very emotional in debates. I can actually say I'm wrong, the moon landings happened, it's abstract to me personally, but I have a higher bar of proof and explanation required rather than relying on the appeal to authority arguments. Regarding experts, if you know anything about human behaviour, career and social risks, it's far harder to come out and question something than to go with the herd." Yes, in fact, it's one of the most difficult things you can do. It takes an extraordinary amount of courage, actually, to do that. David says to Jack, "It's not an appeal to authority fallacy to take the word of qualified experts when it relates to their field, which is why we have doctors. It is a special pleading fallacy to ignore experts when it goes against your beliefs, though. You either throw them out all out or none. You can't have it both ways. If you think NASA is untrustworthy, it needs to be demonstrated, not merely claimed. I don't know. I think if you there's nothing wrong, as I said about when it comes to news, David. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to a news site and looking at it and says, okay, it says this, it makes this point, it makes that point. I'm going to read through this and add it to the list of things as an input. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. This doesn't mean that's an authority that I'm appealing to, even though just now I was slagging it off as disinformation. That would be an appeal to. That would be hypocrisy if that was the case. But it's not just to look at something and say, okay, here it is. That's not. David Smith says in reply to, oh no, we've seen that one. Jim Skim Pivot says to Jack Burns, they're all dogpiling him now. This is, of course, a huge subject, but if I can address the matters you touch on, I think you may see who has the higher ground here, despite being outnumbered. Fallacious appeals to authority litter this debate, but only on one side of a larger presence. 1. Scott Henderson makes an appeal to authority by citing roll film research commissioned by NASA in Egerton and Germashauer and Greer paper. It must be a credible, qualified source. But he misrepresents it. Okay, we've been through that. Jim repeats himself this. Marcus Allen has often claimed some degree of expertise in photography, while never explaining what the qualification for it is. Well, he has. He explains how he used to take advertising photos and things. However, he refers to an experiment published on Owlis where a vacuum jar was used to subject roll film to vacuum. He claims the film was all but trashed. It was not. Yes, it was. He says entirely discernible photos were produced from the vac jar film, but they were off in their colour balance because no test frames were used to calibrate changes in processing that caused by the unconventional vacuum exposure. Yeah, well, maybe in that case, Jim, a controlled sample would have been better. But that if they'd done that, what would you have said then? You'd have said, "Oh no, but it wasn't from the same roll or something." Or the batch numbers are different or something. You'd come up with something to raise the bar, I expect. But I do think that's probably if I can't remember if they actually did a control shoot as well. But if they didn't, maybe that's an idea. However, what we saw from those images was very, very, very poor quality colour images. Very poor quality indeed. It indicates some damage was done to the film. These two matters alone are not just fallacious appeals to authority, they are fundamentally and demonstrably provable lies by the facts contained in the very sources they are happy to claim and support them authoritatively, but are quite happy to misrepresent one and the same time. Okay, Jack says in reply to David, the appeal to authority is used to shut down the discussion. Of course, people questioning the moon landings are going to refer to experts as well, but not to close down the discussion. Jen says to Jack, there's also a difference in that people questioning the moon landings, in this case, are using appeal to authority to tell lies. Jack says, oh, here we go. No, Jen says to Jack, and an ignorant liar with an agenda only sees what he wants while ignoring scientific fact. Alan has told the audience of PhDs that believe the landings beyond doubt, that he believes the audience of PhDs, he believes the landings beyond doubt. No, he doesn't. No, that's you either misrepresenting or you're not familiar with what he actually said. We do discuss that. The roll film experiment we've already covered. The fact that he never denied space photography and spacewalk film on unmodified gear before Apollo. He actually just mentioned he mentions the pressurized cameras used on spy satellites. Have you seen that bit, Jin? He mentions the difference. He says that the spy satellites use pressurized canisters for the film, so the film was never exposed to a vacuum on there. Henderson has lied multiple times about various facts that are easily checked. Here he lies about a document showing a formal NASA-commissioned research paper in which he claims filmed cracked in a vacuum. Okay, we've been through that. He also claimed the Surveyor 3 is made of from wood. In the same session, he also clearly identifies Surveyor's antenna as it's quite different to its solar cell matrix. Sobral is a moron. See next post. Jack Burns, the Apollos and 1960s technology, self-explanatory. really. Apollo was a colossal long-term project that threw money at a proposed outcome. It involved hundreds of thousands of people in every aspect of engineering, chemistry, aerodynamics, and dozens of other fields. It achieved its goals by Apollo 17 and was then completely shut down in favour of orbital manned flights, the space shuttle. 50 years on, a new project was begun. Yeah, it took a long time, didn't it, Jin? Which would capitalise on the advances in technology since Apollo. But while new manufacturing techniques and CNC machines can make and produce better alloys and components, and hybrid polymers could give better shielding, you would have to retest and flight qualify all new technology flown, just as they did Apollo. This is because a reliance on microchip tech, software and computer-controlled navigation and life support systems has never been in deep space except when it has been used in long-range unmanned probes. Well, no need for life support system if they're unmanned. It would be hugely expensive and rather inept simply to recommission Apollo and ignore the technology which has been developed since it was shut down. In fact, it would be insane to go down that road. Well, no one's denying that, but Phil Coots, you're referring, I think, to Phil Coots. He's never suggested we simply dust off the museum pieces. He's never suggested that. He's just suggesting, he's wondering why they have to start from scratch when they had such a good basic technology. When you consider Soyuz, the Soyuz, the Soyuz people. How am I doing with time? Hang on. Oh, right. I think the countdown timer might have actually frozen up. Yeah, it did, so I'm slightly over an hour, but never mind.